In the vast, sprawling suburbs of East Birmingham, life moved to a familiar rhythm. Red brick terraced houses lined quiet streets where children played and neighbors exchanged pleasantries over garden fences. In Selly Oak, a constant stream of students gave the area a youthful, transient energy. On the fringes, unassuming industrial units were home to small businesses, their daily churn a part of the city's economic heartbeat. It was the very picture of mundane, workaday Britain. But behind this veneer of normality, a cancer was growing. It was an empire built not of glass and steel, but of brick, mortar, and dirty money. It operated in the open, yet remained invisible. Its currency was heroin, its ledger, a complex web of shell companies and third-party ownership. For nearly a decade, a sophisticated Pakistani crime syndicate systematically laundered the profits of a vast drug trafficking operation into a property portfolio worth an astonishing £17 million. This was not a story of flashy gangsters with fast cars and garish jewelry. This was a story of quiet, patient, and ruthless businessmen who understood that real power lay not in overt displays of wealth, but in the silent accumulation of assets. They turned the misery of addiction into student houses and commercial real leases, embedding their criminal enterprise so deeply into the community that it became part of the landscape. This is the story of how they built their empire, and how the patient, meticulous work of law enforcement brought it all crashing down. At the apex of this criminal pyramid stood three men: Ameran Zeb Khan, the strategic mastermind; Muhammad Ali, his trusted partner and co-organizer; and Sajid Hussain, the enforcer who oversaw logistics and distribution. They were ghosts in the system, operating with a discipline that belied the violent trade that funded them. Their genius was in their understatement. They understood that to survive, they had to look legitimate. Their strategy was deceptively simple: transform illegal cash into solid, respectable assets. Property was the perfect vehicle. It offered stability, a veneer of legitimacy, and a continuous stream of rental income that could be used to further blur the lines between clean and dirty money. Starting around 2011, they began to buy. Using a network of trusted associates, family members, and willing participants, they acquired a staggering 59 properties. The portfolio was a masterclass in diversification. In the student hub of Selly Oak, they bought 34 houses, taking advantage of the high tenant turnover and the prevalence of cash-in-hand rental agreements. In some streets, they became the dominant landlord, owning 5 or 6 houses in a single row, effectively controlling the local rental market. Their reach extended beyond residential lets. They purchased several industrial units, providing a legitimate-looking base for their operations. They even acquired a public gym, Rampage Fitness on Cherrywood Road, another cash-intensive business perfect for laundering money. The empire stretched as far as the seaside town of Bangor in Northern Ireland, where 3 properties were purchased and cash was funneled through businesses connected to Khan's relatives, including the Taj Tandoori restaurant. To manage this complex web, the ringleaders built a corporate-style structure. Mohammed Ashfaq Khan was a key logistics manager, ensuring the smooth movement of their illicit goods. A pivotal figure was Rajesh Patel, a seemingly respectable businessman who provided the crucial paperwork, invoices, shipping manifest, and company records that gave the gang's shipments a cloak of legitimacy. On the ground, men like Omar Isa and Imran Arif were the muscle, the hands-on operatives who received the deliveries, blissfully unaware of the vast financial architecture they were serving. Every property deed was in someone else's name. Every mortgage application was carefully structured. They created a labyrinth of ownership designed to frustrate any investigation. For years, it worked. Tenants paid their rent, the gym's weights clanked, and the industrial units hummed. All the while, every brick, every mortgage payment, and every renovation was funded by the proceeds of heroin smuggled into the UK. The river of cash that fed the empire flowed from the poppy fields of Afghanistan through the processing labs of Pakistan and onto the streets of Britain. The gang had engineered a sophisticated and highly effective supply chain for importing high-purity heroin. Their method was chosen for its subtlety and effectiveness. They used legitimate shipping channels, hiding their product in plain sight. The plan involved 2 large container shipments, both originating from Lahore. From there, they were routed through the bustling port of Karachi before embarking on the long sea voyage to the London Gateway port. The genius of the concealment lay in the cover load, heavy industrial lathes. These solid, dense pieces of machinery were the perfect Trojan horse. They were difficult and time-consuming to inspect, requiring specialist lifting gear and cutting equipment that customs officials were unlikely to employ on a routine check. Deep inside the metal framework of these machines, expertly concealed, were compressed packages of heroin. In February 2014, the first container arrived at London Gateway. It passed through customs without a hitch. The heroin, hidden within its mechanical shell, was successfully offloaded and distributed. This single shipment, once cut and sold on the street, would have generated millions of pounds. For the gang, it was more than just a profit. It was a proof of concept. Their method was foolproof. Emboldened by this success, their confidence swelled into arrogance. They immediately began planning a second shipment, this one even larger. They believed they were untouchable, that their heroin pipeline could flow indefinitely, fueling the endless growth of their property empire. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The beginning of the end came not from a dramatic raid or an informant's tip, but from a piece of routine paperwork thousands of miles from Birmingham. In December 2011, the Police Service of Northern Ireland, PSNI, flagged a series of suspicious property purchases in Bangor. They noticed that individuals with little to no legitimate income were acquiring valuable real estate. Unable to pursue it further themselves, they sent a referral to the National Crime Agency, NCA. This single piece of intelligence landed on the desk of the NCA's asset denial team. They launched what is known as a civil recovery investigation. Using powers under the Proceeds of Crime Act, they could target the assets themselves, even without the evidence needed for a criminal conviction. Their goal was to prove that the properties were bought with illicit funds. Investigators began the painstaking process of financial forensics. It didn't take them long to connect the Bangor properties to the growing web of real estate in East Birmingham. They found the same names, the same patterns. The discrepancies were glaring. In one case, an individual with a declared annual income of just £20,000 was the registered owner of multiple properties worth a combined total of over £1 million. As Andy Lewis, the NCA's head of asset recovery, later put it, "Findings like these start the hairs running on your neck." At this point, they had no direct evidence of drug trafficking. All they had was a mountain of financial data that screamed money laundering. But it was enough. The NCA began meticulously mapping the network, tracing every transaction, examining every mortgage application, and building a detailed picture of an empire built on lies. The trap was being laid, slowly and patiently. It would stretch on for years, becoming one of the NCA's longest-running asset recovery cases, as investigators waited for the gang to make a mistake. By mid-2014, the gang, flush with the success of their first shipment, set their second larger operation in motion. The same route, the same cover load of industrial lathes, the same concealment method, they were confident it would be another smooth success. But this time, at the London Gateway port, their luck ran out. Border Force officers, perhaps acting on a sliver of intelligence or simply a well-honed instinct, flagged the container for a more thorough inspection. They noted anomalies in the shipping documents and inconsistencies in the weight and balance of the lathes. Instead of a cursory glance, they brought in specialist equipment. As they cut through the thick steel casings of the machines, they found it. Tightly wrapped packages of brown powder were packed into every available cavity. It was 165 kilograms of heroin, with a purity of 58%. The NCA estimated its wholesale value at around £5 million, but once cut and distributed, its street value was a staggering £19 million, enough for nearly 2 million individual deals. This was the moment of truth for the investigation. The easy option would have been to seize the drugs and arrest whoever came to collect them. But the NCA played a longer, more audacious game. In a high-stakes move, they decided to let the container continue its journey. They carefully removed the heroin, substituted it with a harmless substance, and reassembled the lathes, fitting them with covert listening and tracking devices. The trap was now baited. The container was transported to its final destination, an industrial unit in Sandwell, West Midlands. Surveillance teams had the location locked down. They were hidden, waiting, recording every second. Soon, Omar Issa and Imran Arif arrived, the trusted hands-on members of the network. Completely unaware they were walking into a sting, They began the process of unloading the machinery, believing they were about to take possession of a life-changing score. Every word they spoke, every grunt of effort as they moved the heavy equipment was captured. The trap had been sprung. This wasn't just about catching two couriers. It was the final, undeniable link that connected the heroin to the men at the top of the pyramid. With the evidence from the Sandwell sting, the NCA had everything it needed. The parallel civil and criminal investigations merged into one powerful prosecution. In early 2017, the order was given to dismantle the entire organization. In a series of dramatic synchronized raids across Birmingham and the West Midlands, North Carolina A officers and local police struck. Ameran Zeb Khan was arrested at his home on Cobham Road. Muhammad Ali was taken into custody at his house on Wincliffe Road, and Sajid Hussain was picked up on Fieldhouse Road. Their key lieutenants, Ashfaq Khan, Rajesh Patel, Isa, and Arif, were all detained in the same sweep. The case came to trial in July 2017 at Birmingham Crown Court. Over several weeks, the prosecution methodically laid out the story of the gang's decade-long conspiracy. They presented the jury with the overwhelming evidence: the surveillance footage of Isa and Arif with the lathes, the detailed shipping documents provided by Patel, the 165 kilogram of seized heroin, and the labyrinthine financial records that tied the drug money directly to the 59 properties. The defense crumbled. The evidence was irrefutable. The sentences were severe. Ameran Zeb Khan, 38, the architect of the empire, was sentenced to 22 years in prison. His partners, Muhammad Ali, 36, and Sajid Hussain, 32, received identical 22-year sentences. The court recognized their roles as the orchestrators of the entire conspiracy. Their associates were also handed long jail terms. Logistics manager Mohammed Ashfaq Khan, 49, received 17.5 years. Rajesh Patel, 52, the man whose legitimate business provided the cover, was jailed for 15.5 years. Omar Isa, 36, caught red-handed in the sting, also received 15.5 years, while his accomplice, Imran Arif, 35, was given 10 years. The final member, Zulfikar Munsaf, 38, who had acted as a go-between and was the only one to plead guilty, was sentenced to 14 years. In total, the 8 men were jailed for a combined 139 years. Their criminal enterprise was left in ruins. Under the Proceeds of Crime Act, the NCA seized and sold their entire £17 million property empire. The quiet houses, the industrial units, the gym, all were stripped away, with the money returned to the public purse. The shadow economy that had thrived for so long in the heart of Birmingham had finally been brought into the light.